Republican Tim Pawlenty, the former governor of Minnesota and a former U.S. presidential candidate himself, joining us now. Where's your head at, Governor, as we watch this play out? And what are you hearing within your political inner circle about the next move?
Well, whether you're part of the mega Republican Party or the broader Republican Party, I think Republicans are really quite now optimistic and bullish about Republican chances in this fall's election at the presidential level and down ballot as well, for all the obvious reasons. Our opponents are imploding, and when they're imploding, the best thing to do is stand back and let them implode, and that's what they're doing.
What are your expectations as an American voter tonight? And I ask you just for a moment to take off our political hats that so many have. And as you'll be watching the president meet this moment, it's the most important job in the world. He'll go face to face with the press tonight. What will you be looking for and watching?
Well, like everyone else, I'll be looking to see how he functions in terms of his mental and physical strength and attention and focus and ability to communicate. But let's be candid. The challenges that President Biden is facing from a health standpoint have been hiding in plain sight for years. And so, the polling, even pre-debate, showed that a very substantial portion of the voters were concerned about his age and his physical and mental ability to do the job for 4 more years. And so this is the worst kept secret in American politics. Most of us, anybody who could see over the last few years, could see these challenges coming. And I think it was just a matter of time. And whether he stays in the race or drops out, President Biden, I think, is toast at this point.
How does Trump capitalize on the momentum we're seeing in some of the polls? And what is the political strategy as we get ready for the RNC here in just a few days?
Well, again, I think if you're President Trump, you'll see that he's uncharacteristically been somewhat muted over the last few days or weeks since the debate. And that's because he's just letting the other side, do their internal tensions to the benefit of the Republicans. And they don't have a good place to go, because if Biden stays in the race, he's probably going to lose. If they switch to Vice President Harris, she's even less popular than Biden. So Republicans do not view her as a strong candidate or a strong alternative, and maybe easier to beat than Biden. She's going to inherit all the Biden baggage of border security issues, crime issues, inflation issues, wokeness run amok issues. And so the idea that she somehow is going to be a stronger candidate, I think, is probably misguided.
Does any of this play into the vice presidential pick? Is it a factor as former President Trump decides who will join him on the ticket?
I think it is, although the timing of it is awkward for President Trump, because if the Democrats do switch out and go with a different candidate in a different ticket, ideally, if you're President Trump or his strategist, you'd want to, calibrate the VP pick in part to balance the ticket relative to what the Democrats are doing. But we won't be able to know that probably by the end of next week. And so he's going to have to make a choice kind of on a best guess basis with that in mind. Although, his choices are down to some people who've been pretty well identified. I hold out the possibility he may do something surprising. If you look at a state like Virginia and how that might flip, the possibility of a surprise pick to help win the race in a state like Virginia would not be shocking to me.
Is Nikki Haley on the list of possibilities in your mind as someone to join the ticket and her political aspirations beyond what we've seen so far?
I wish she was. I think she would bring a lot to the table in terms of the voter groups that President Trump needs to attract and keep, and for the Republican Party's future as well, in terms of building a coalition, looking to the future. But it seems like both President Trump and Governor Haley have basically said that's not going to happen. So I don't think that is going to happen.
Let's talk about policy for a moment, and that will be part of the focus for the RNC. Make America financially strong again, protect our borders. They've got a theme for each night. But the former president will be criticized for not finishing the wall that he promised to build, that he will cut taxes for the rich and the middle class will hurt because of it. His stance on national security and some concern that he has said he'd leave NATO. How does he address some of those serious issues when the microscope then turns to policy, as it should in this presidential election, and how he would do things differently if given a second term?
Sure. And I think the Democrats will have some advantages on some issues, the Republicans on other issues, the ones I've mentioned. But it really comes down to what are that small percentage of persuadable voters are going to do with these issue sets in the 6 or 7 states or 10 states that are actually going to be in play. Because places like California and New York, they're basically an electoral system already decided.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.